YouTube audio test. Hey, Elaine, can you hear us?
I can now.
Super.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. I promise not to yell. Too loud.
Why don't we just give it another couple minutes to wait for Donna and John?
Sounds good. We are on YouTube and everything is ready whenever you would like to start.
Okay, let's give them a couple more minutes because I don't believe either of them declined attending the meeting.
Oh, good. I've got a guy here fixing my water heater, so I'm gonna go give him a check. Oops. What happened?
You're still there, Lane.
Oh, okay.
Should I be able to see everybody at the top?
I can't see anything right now. I'm gonna step away for a second.
I got Dennis Mantrella on top up there, but just his name. And Dale, got his name.
Right now, Denny, Dale, Chuck, and Lane are not sharing their video. They're either called in or not sharing video. In the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, if you're using a computer, there is mute and then there is stop or share video. If anybody would like to change their settings.
It says start video. Is that what we're supposed to click on?
Yeah, I think so. There you go, Dale. It's like you're in a basement. I see some trucks above your head.
Yeah, it's actually the kitchen. Those are from the 50s.
Yeah, very cool. There we go. We see Denny now.
Should I Do you hit the button on your the plus button or something? You can't hear me.
No, we can hear you, Lane.
Good.
It says start video on the bottom left.
Not on mine. That's okay. Just I can hear everybody. That's fine.
And mine says I gotta select another video camera, but I don't see it.
Well, I just got Chuck, but I got his name. Let's see what the heck's
Okay,
going on.
this is John. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
I can.
we can hear you.
Okay. I can see you now, Brian.
Yeah, mine said share video, and that kind of confused me. I didn't know whether to push it. I pushed it and it worked, so.
Okay, I don't know how I got in, actually. I'm on my iPhone, so hang on here for 1 minute.
Hey, Ben, when I tested it earlier today, was I visible to you?
No, it was just, I was like this.
No, okay. I wish I would have known.
Whoops, whatever you did there worked, but it went away.
Well, let me see here.
All right, I've got people now at the bottom. I see Ben and Sarah and Laketran. I don't know who's Laketran.
That's the boardroom. That's all of us. here.
I know what it is. I'm just
Oh.
kidding.
Got me.
Yeah, I did.
Get out of bed, Lane.
It's not me.
I'm
I can see Denny, but Denny, can you see me?
no, I can't, John.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Well, now that it's 4:10, we should probably call today's meeting to order. Let's call today's Board of Trustees meeting to order at 4:10 p.m. Vicky, can you please call the roll?
Felkowski,
Present.
Martin,
Here.
McNamee, Montrella,
Here,
Schiavone,
Here,
Sheets,
Here,
Spence,
Here,
Zibble.
If we could all please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
United States of America.
Hi, Jim.
Public for which is.
Yeah.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dale, do you happen to have a mission statement handy?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Laketran is committed to providing quality public transportation services to all Lake County residents with special emphasis on meeting the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities.
Thank you very much. Ben, are there any public comments either at the facility or in any of the waiting rooms for the meeting?
We have received no public comments in any format.
Okay, seeing no public comments, we will move on. At this time, is there a motion to approve the Laketran Board of Trustees Board meeting minutes of October 26th, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schiavone and Mr. Zibble, was that you who seconded?
Not me, no.
Lane.
Seconded by Mr. Sheets. Vicky, if you could please call a roll.
Martin,
Yes.
McNamee, Mantrella,
Yes.
Schiavone,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Spence,
yes,
Zibble.
Yes,
Thank you. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Ben for a presentation on the status of our headquarters project. Ben?
Thanks, Brian. I spoke to all of you last week about the project, so you have a general idea of what we are going to be discussing tonight. I have with me Ken, Kyle, and Billy Joe from R.L. Bowen and Associates. And what I've asked them to do is kind of give everyone an update of where the project is, look at some of the kind of the floor plans we're at. And then when they're finished, I have a couple more things I want to kind of go over with everyone. So I think I'm just going to let them go ahead and kind of take it from here to let you see where they're at in the process. To give you an idea, it's kind of put some of my remarks that I made to you last week in context. So with that, Ken is going to be doing most of the presentation with some support from his colleagues.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ken Emling. I'm from Bowen and Associates. I'm the project manager. I want to thank you for inviting us here this afternoon to present where we are with the project. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of where we've been over the last few months. When we were awarded the project, we came out with our team for about a 2-day work session. We spent the time reviewing the existing facility, both the building and the site, and meeting with various people here to get a better understanding of what the needs are for the overall project and moving forward. We put together a programming report, a program of requirements is what we call it, that lists all the requirements and the space needs in a written format. And then we began doing conceptual layouts of the various spaces. Once we had completed that, we moved into what we call schematic design. And these documents that you see here are basically the result of the end of the schematic design phase. We are not complete yet. There are 2 more phases to move through beyond schematic design. They're called design development and then construction documents. So I think this is a very good point in the overall design process to present this to you and to kind of show you where we're at with everything in terms of what we've discovered and what we've proposed. I'm going to let our project designer, Kyle, walk you through the floor plans. And then once he's completed, I will talk more about where we are with the costs, the estimates for the project. So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle here.
Good afternoon. I'm Kyle Kulawat. I'm Director of Design here at Bowen and leading the design charge for this project. So what you see in front of you now, this is the existing building as it sits today. We will be looking at, in part of this project was to look critically at all elements of the building, the administration, the lobby area, the operations, the dispatch and day room, and the maintenance to really bring this up to a modern facility that's on par with other transportation facilities of this size and scope. So this is our proposed floor plan for the project. And what it does is we really feel that it really kind of rearranges and expands on the plan and really makes the building much more functional than it is today on a number of different options. The first thing is the space. The building is undersized as it is on all factions, especially with the day room and the dispatch and the operations and the maintenance area, and really looking to expand, but not only expand, but make them functional, make them operate better than they are today. Another big area that we'll be looking at is the exterior and kind of the wayfinding, where the public knows where to go into the building versus where employees go into the building. Right now, we really want to make that clear. We want to make sure the public knows where they're going. And then once they get into the building, one, that it's got the proper security for both the public and for the people who work here within the facility. So moving into the administration area and the lobby area, the footprint for these areas will remain as is. However, we feel that there's a lot of opportunity to increase the functionality of it based on where Laketran is today and where they're going. One of the big deficiencies here is conference room space and meeting space and having that collaboration space, while also giving balance to private offices as well on the administration area. And again, with the lobby, making that entrance very clear as a public walks up to it, but also providing the security for the person who's working at the front desk and also for the people working in the administration area and in the operations area. And another thing to kind of keep in mind, and this kind of goes along with the spatial requirements for it, is really making this building accessible. Looking at all aspects, really making sure that it's a barrier-free, universal design building, and improving on that in all areas with, access from one side of the building to the other side, with the restrooms, with the restroom count, and that really becomes a very important element to the overall design of the building. So one of the major areas that we'll be looking to really improve based on where it is today is the day room and the dispatch center. And this is on a number of levels. On the day room side, it's really about the amenities for the drivers and really creating a day room that's on par with the other facilities throughout the state. Creating that area where, they've got the quiet room, they've got the area where they can hang out and eat, an area where they can, a lounge area, but also the proper restroom facilities as well. And the other side of that is the dispatch, and really positioning the dispatch in the proper location within the whole facility itself, and really understanding the sequence of how drivers come in, interface with the dispatch, how the dispatch interfaces with the drivers, the visibility that dispatch has to the garage, to the drivers coming in and out, and really creating a better flow for this space for both the people in the dispatch area and for the driver room area. Operations is another area where we are looking to kind of create those proper spatial relationships and give the proper space to the function that goes on in here. So on the right side, this is what we've created, sort of an administrative suite for the operations area. Again, seeing that there's a deficiency in conference room and office space, creating the proper amount of conference rooms, office, and the proper relationship between the two. As you move into the kind of the center of the building, one of the big areas that we're looking at is creating that proper space for the call center, one that it's acoustically sound, that it's secure, that it's got some sort of separation from the rest of the facility so they can do their job properly without being disturbed with all the activity going around them. The training area, this is a big thing with these types of centers. And right now there's just a small training area and it's just sort of a single room. This new training area gives the ability to create one larger training room, but also have it divisible into two. So you can have multiple training types going on, whether it's with maintenance, whether it's with drivers. And again, the kind of the center of this space is centered around the break room and the restrooms, giving the proper amenities to the people who are working here and making this a great place to work. One of the things that we've noticed, and this is, regardless of the type of building, these type of improvements, one, they improve the productivity, but two, it's really important to retention and to attracting talent to come work at Laketran. I mean, this is something that we've experienced ourselves with our new office. And, all these kind of elements are just, I think, going to create a great work environment. And then moving down to the left, increasing the road supervisor offices. not only increasing the amount, but increasing the space so they're more functional. So the proper meetings that need to happen in these offices can happen within the offices. Moving to the maintenance area. Again, this is such a key and important area, and it's really got to work and function properly. What we've done here is we've added a 6th bay. This will create a much more functional space. Right size the part storage area and the loading dock. A better layout of where the equipment goes, making sure that we've got proper room for all the toolboxes that the mechanics have. And then the mechanic space itself, creating proper locker rooms and restrooms, which are very undersized as they are right now, and a proper break room with natural light. Again, the existing break room is much smaller than we would normally see in this type of facility. And then having the offices in the right location so they oversee the maintenance areas. They're the proper size where they can have meetings, small meetings themselves in the offices. And again, increasing the overall functionality of the entire space. So how is this going to get done? Phasing is going to be really important to this project. And this is something that we always keep a keen eye on because you have to maintain operations while this is all going on. So there are kind of this 1-2 step. This first and second step really sets the tone and really sets everything in motion. Dispatch has to be moved in order for the day room to be expanded. In order for dispatch to be moved, we got to start construction of the addition. And this addition is going to take a few forms till it gets to its final configuration. But by moving the dispatch over into the storage areas right now, you're able to set up the dispatch while leaving the day room and existing dispatch in operation. That way, when the dispatch area is totally redone, now the day room can be renovated and made into a proper day room. And while all this is going on, the addition is being constructed. And what we've done is we've aligned how this addition gets added on to maintain the existing exterior wall. That way, the existing operations and administration area can stay in operation while the addition is being built. So we've got this addition built, and what we've done in the past and what we've seen is operations, admin, the lobby, these can be temporarily moved into this new addition while the administration, the lobby, and the existing operations is being renovated. And at this time, the day room and the dispatch are up in operation. They're moving forward as they should. So temporarily, while the administration operations are in the new addition, the other side of the building can be fully renovated. And then once that side is fully renovated, administration is able to move in, half the operations is able to move in, and the other part of the building is now being able to be finished to its final configuration, where the rest of the administration is moved into the area. The maintenance is able to be expanded and complete the project. And so just, some of the key things is, we want to make sure that your call center is always operational during this time, that the day room, that the dispatch, again, are always operational, and the administration has a place to be able to work.
All right, thanks, Kyle. This is Ken again. I'm going to take over here and talk a little bit about our schematic design estimate. I'll reinforce that this is an estimate. As everybody knows, or anybody knows that's been involved in construction, what we try to do here is put together an estimate that would fall in the middle of where we would receive our bids, or somewhere in that line. We're trying to be a little bit conservative here to make sure that we're showing Laketran an appropriate number and try to avoid having to rebid anything because of bids being high. So again, this is a schematic design estimate. We've tried to break this out into the major chunks of the project in order to give you an idea of where we're at. We're also showing you basically where we're at with cost per square foot. Looking at the bus storage addition, it's at about $170 a square foot. In the operations addition being more of an office space, you would expect that to be higher. Right now we're showing that at $268 a square foot. We are doing work around the exterior of the envelope of the building itself, and that's about $500,000. And then as Kyle mentioned, the maintenance area, the renovations to that, mostly interior space, equipment related, about $162 a square foot. And then the admin and dispatch area, and also the included in there is the lube room area, is at about $244 a square foot. And then we have overall site work between the south and the north is around $900,000. And then what we've estimated right now for all of the new FF&E stands for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So for all the new furniture that would be related to these various components of the project, right now we're targeting that at about $425,000. So our total estimate right now is at about 17.8 million. And if you can see at the bottom left corner, these numbers do include a few contingencies that I just want to point out. For being at the schematic design level, where there's still a lot of engineering and detailed work to come, we're showing a 7.5% design contingency. And that just is for unknowns that might come up that we haven't anticipated yet because we're not that far along in the engineering. So I always carry a contingency on all of these estimates, again, to make sure we're on the conservative side and we're not selling the project short in terms of where it may cost. We've added 1% for phasing. As Kyle pointed out, the project will have to be phased, and a contractor that's going to bid this work is going to have to take that into account. They can't build everything at once. And so there's going to be dollars in there for them to handle that. And then we've added 4% for escalation, knowing that this project will start in 2021. Depending on the estimator you talk to, that number could be 2% or it could be 10%. The market is pretty volatile right now. I can tell you that before COVID hit, going back to this time last year, bids were coming in extremely high. The market was saturated in Northeast Ohio, contractors were busy, and bids were coming in high. Since then, we've bid a couple of smaller projects which have come in within budget, which is a good thing. But as hopefully things change and the vaccine comes out and people get back to work, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the market. So it's a little bit of a shooting match in terms of what we're going to find. So with these contingencies, we feel comfortable that we're covering ourselves to make sure that we're showing a number that's conservative, but what we feel is appropriate right now. So again, until the project goes out to bid and the contractors put numbers to it, they're ultimately going to tell us what this project is going to cost. But we feel comfortable that this is a good, solid, conservative number for where we're at right now. Ben had asked me to take a look at some previous transit type projects that we had done within the last couple of years to give you an idea of comparative cost per square foot. A couple of years ago, we renovated a smaller area of Parda's garage to make it CNG compliant. It was about just a little under 6,000 square feet. It took over an existing part of a garage, did completely new building systems in it, gas detection, new overhead doors, a little bit of equipment in there, and that was at about $140 a square foot. We're currently working with SARTA as they're looking to expand their garage upwards of 85,000 square feet. This garage will have a maintenance area with 4 work bays, and it will have a small office area and meeting space area as well. And although this has not gone out to bid yet, the estimates on that project right now are at about $190 a square foot. In January, we bid out a project for the Rocky River Police Department. It included a full police department project, but part of that was a vehicle garage, which was attached to the police garage. We bid that as an alternate. Just in case the bids came in too high, the city had the option to not build that. They did end up deciding to build it. It's basically an open barn with overhead doors on each end, 8,500 square feet, heating and ventilating in there, and that was still at $130 a square foot. And then finally, about 3 or 4 years ago now, we did an addition to Coda's McKinley Avenue garage. It was an addition that was about 35,000 square feet. It was on their eastern end. It included their driver transportation wing and also a bus wash addition. And the addition was, the bus wash was about 10,000 square feet, and everything else totaled about 25,000 square feet. And again, that had some vehicle equipment in there. That came in very high at the time at about $350 a square foot. So given all of that information, I was asked also to take a look at an estimate that had been prepared for you at the beginning of the year by another architectural firm. And in looking at it, my overall opinion is that I am concerned that these numbers are low compared to what I've seen in my experience over the past 10 years, over the past 5 years, over the last 12 months. To do an actual addition that requires work up and against an existing building, in my opinion, $175 a square foot is just not enough, especially in today's market. And then the bus garage addition, $100 a square foot is not going to buy you much in this market. Even a very simple, straightforward, pre-engineered metal building at this point is probably a little higher than that. This bus garage addition will have ventilating systems in it. It will have gas detection. It will be fully sprinklered. It will have a thicker slab for the buses. It's not just a run-of-the-mill garage. And so us being at $170 a square foot with our contingencies, I'm much more comfortable with than the numbers that I saw in this other estimate. And then, as you go through this other estimate, there's a handful of various items that are line items that I would feel are a little low. There are a number of items in this estimate that I feel are in line with what we've shown. So it's not across the board, but the big picture numbers, the cost per square foot numbers, I just feel are a little low compared to where I'm more comfortable being at right now. To be perfectly honest, at the end of the day, if we bid this and we came in, somewhere between the Bowen estimate and this previous estimate, hopefully being under the Bowen estimate so that we only have to bid at one time, that would be the ideal scenario here. The other thing I did want to throw out there is, there's always the option of doing alternates to the bid, as I mentioned in that Rocky River project. So for example, on your project here, one of the easiest ones to do would be the bus garage addition. It's very much a standalone project, and we can engineer it and draw it and just simply identify it as add alternate number one, and then the contractors will bid it that way. And then when all the bids come in, we know what the rest of the project costs, and we know what that piece of the project costs. And then if there's any concern about it or it doesn't fit within a certain budget that everybody's comfortable with, you can choose to do that at a later time. You could bid it out again a year from now or 2 years from now. And the other good thing about that is you'll already have the construction documents completed for it. It'll just be a matter of determining when is the right time to do it. So again, we are at the schematic design level with these numbers. These are not the numbers that represent what we would go out to bid with. I don't know how much things will change between now and when we do go out to bid in a few months. But I've done this enough in my career with all types of transit projects and other projects related to municipalities where the last thing we want to do is to have to rebid because the bids came in over 10% of our estimate. It slows the project down. It slows everything down. Everybody's upset because the bids didn't come in where we thought they would. And so we've tried to put together a good, solid, conservative cost estimate to make decisions upon and move forward with. So that's where I'm at with the estimate part of it. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Ben now.
Before I start, I just want to know if any of the board members have any questions for Ken or his team while we have them with us.
Well, can I ask a question? What was that original CT estimate at?
The total estimate with design was just over 12. The construction estimate with contingency was 10.7.
So the 17 million we're showing here is not including design or is including design?
It does not include design. We are, since we already did that contract with Ken, this 17.8 is essentially hard costs with contingencies.
So basically we're looking at a 7 million increase from what we originally thought the construction cost would be.
Yes.
I guess a question for the consultant. You guys, familiar with ODOT work, this looks like, is this like a comparable to a stage one design in transportation?
I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to stage one. Are you referring to a level of completeness?
Yeah, they're like preliminary plans, but don't have quantities. And I was just wondering, at what phase stage you consider these plans to be at?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we go through, I'll call it 4 phases, and we've gotten through 2 of them. The first phase is the programming phase. So we identify all the needs, and those are then identified conceptually with overall blocks of square footage. What we just completed and what this is based upon is called schematic design. So it sounds like it might be similar to a stage one, but maybe just a little bit more. So we have put together very preliminary engineering drawings and civil drawings and the architectural. And that makes up our schematic design package. Now, it has not gotten into detailed engineering yet.
Okay.
It's on a schematic level, but I think it's probably comparable to your stage one, but maybe just a slightly further along than that.
So the current costs are simply done by square footage?
Well, some of them are, and our estimator, actually, we spent quite a bit of time going back and forth with him just to make sure that all of us on our team were comfortable. But to the extent that he could, he tried to begin to delineate things from a cost standpoint based upon actual drawings. So for example, the civil work.
Mhm.
And for example, now he has a little bit more detailed information about where an area may have a new lay-in ceiling versus the maintenance area, which is going to be painted. So he was able to break these out into a little bit more detail. But again, this is not to a level of detail that you would expect before we went out to bid. When we go out to bid, every line item will be identified, and it's very possible that these numbers could come down by that point. In fact, Ben did ask me to take a look at a couple of areas when I went back to this total estimate number. And I do feel confident that moving forward, working closely with Laketran, that we can actually bring some of these cost per square foot numbers down. But again, as I said previously, I don't want to set any false expectations for you as the board or anybody here in this room. I would rather err on the side of caution right now and then be able to scale back a little bit. So I do have a comfort level that, you know, the admin dispatch area, I think we can bring that 244 down. The operations addition, I think we can bring that number down a little bit too. Now, are we cutting it in half, or are we getting to where the CT number was? I don't really think so. I don't feel that those numbers are comfortable to me, but I do think that we can bring this overall 17.8 down. The other thing I do want to point out real quick while I'm talking very quickly is that the design contingency, which I've shown, which is at 7.5%, when we get to design development and we put together that estimate, we bring that percentage down. So that might come down to maybe 3.5% or 4%, because we know more. We've started to draw more. We've started to engineer more. So there's less uncertainty in the estimate at that point. And then finally, when we do our construction document or our bid estimate, that design contingency goes to 0, because at that point, our estimator is putting numbers to exactly everything that's on the drawings.
Okay, thanks. I mean, here's obviously the board's situation is we were originally looking at a 10 million construction cost project. Now it's 17. So, you know, I talked a little bit about Ben, and obviously at ODOT, you know, which is highway work, which is where I'm from, you know, when we have the various stage plans completed, those are reviewed, and then the consultant continues on and we verify the budget of the job and the scope of the job. So I was just telling Ben, you know, we're either going to have to, as far as I can see, approve a 7 million increase. But to do that, maybe we want a third party just to take a quick look at the square footage charge, how you did this, and say, yeah, that makes sense what they did. And yeah, it's, you know, what they've got is around the 17 million mark, or maybe a little less later on. Or we could wait till a little bit later on when you get more of the plans developed. But I'm not sure if we can if it makes sense for us to proceed with that, leaving the 10 million estimate without us kind of having a third party say, yeah, that looks reasonable, to move on. I'll open up to any comments from any other board members on that.
Dale, I would just interject a little bit here from the standpoint, this is Chuck, that they probably should go through the design development phase so that they get to that point where there is more detail in the drawings before you would want to go out for another third opinion on this. And certainly a third opinion is not necessarily going to be much of a change if these guys' experiences is giving them some good quality numbers of jobs that they've recently bid. And again, I think between what happened with the beginning of the year and now, nobody really could predict some of these cost changes, I think, that have been happening.
All right, should we just leave it, you think, at the 10 million for now and let them develop further with the plans? And when we get those quantities, what have you, then see where we're at again? I mean,
I
we
think
can
there's,
prove an increase whenever, I guess.
I would agree with you on that we could prove an increase, but I think we have to be knowledgeable or aware that the cost is probably going to be greater than what we originally had thought back in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a good segue to kind of some of the things. Oh, sorry, Donna.
I just was curious if we have a list, Chuck, of where these costs exactly are projected to incur for that extra 7 million and some odd dollars. Is it in any particular area or labor and building materials across the board? I'm just curious if you've seen that and how you assess it.
Well, Ken probably could answer that a lot better than I can because he knows what he has in his estimate there. But again, at this point, where they're at in the phasing of the design, they're just basing everything on square footages and some detail that they know about. Where CT, I think, probably was really pretty much just on all the square footages basis and just took numbers on square footage. So I think that's where, I think Ken alluded to that was the difference. They're seeing much higher square footage costs than what originally was presented to us.
Based on specifics of the project.
The way that they are seeing the market out there right now for construction.
How many square footage is this entire project? That was kind of hard to tell based on one slide that was put up there. It names square footages, but every thing on that list did not represent a particular square footage.
Hey, Donna, this is John. I was just kind of doing the math on that myself because they were talking about $170 per square foot for the maintenance area or the building addition for the bus area and $268 per square foot for the office, which office addition, which to me, made that a 14,000 square feet incremental for the office and 32,000 incremental for the bus area. And I'm just wondering, is my math right there? Does that answer your question? And is my math right? And if it is right, how does that square up with the original idea here? Because it seems like a lot of additional square footage here
Yes,
from the original plan. So I was just thinking the same way you were thinking about it, Donna.
Well, yes, that's generally where I'm headed. And also adding to that, if there would be any public question down the road about all this, I think we need to know those answers more specifically, where the dollars have gone, why they've increased.
Right.
The kinds of math you're doing there.
Yeah.
I think we just need to arm ourselves with that up front while we're doing this.
Yeah, especially the incremental square footage for the project, and along with that, and I don't know how Chuck would look at it or anybody else, but given this situation, is this a cost plus project? We're just going to do whatever the cost is, or are we going to downsize the project in order to make it something more reasonable number? I don't know. I don't know how we're looking at this.
I think typically it's just a straight bid job, and you hope we come in within 10%, same as we had to with ODOT. And regarding the scope of the job, I'm assuming Ben and his folks looked at this to make sure they were within the scope
Mhm.
of what we
Yes.
want to have done. So
Mhm.
I'm not saying there would be any issue maybe with the square footage, other than just wanting to verify costs. But again, like Chuck said, we could do that later when we get more into the design.
Yeah, our scope did not change from what we asked CT for what we asked Bowen for. Now, we did not have a specific number of square feet in mind because we weren't sure how sort of the puzzle pieces would fit together. But the work activities we said we need to accommodate there's no difference between sort of what Bowen estimated and what CT estimated. And I think Ken can answer the question about, are there specific sort of, I guess you'd say, hot button places where the cost changed, or is it all over the board? So I'll let Ken answer that.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. There were a few questions I was kind of writing down here. I want to make sure I try to answer them all. I can tell you to start with that we at Bowen would have no issue at all if Laketran wanted to bring in a third-party estimator. You are the owner of the project and you have every right to do that. And I would not be offended at all if that's a path you chose to do to check the numbers. These are important decisions that you have to make. And so we would understand completely. I did make point of this to Ben last week with regard to estimating, is that because you have hired us to also estimate the project, that it's our goal to make sure that the bids come in within 10% and no higher than 10% of our published estimate when this project hits the street. A third-party estimator, again, that input would be welcomed. They don't have sort of that skin in the game that we do, because if the bids do come in higher than the 10%, then as I mentioned earlier, the project has to be rebid. And at that point, again, we're looking at delaying the project, we're delaying the overall construction, and it's incumbent upon us as your architects and engineers to figure out what went wrong, reassess the project, repackage it, and put it back out to bid at no cost to you. Again, a third-party estimate, I'm completely fine with that. And we would take all of their input into account. Just kind of understand that where our role is in this is we view this estimate as being extremely important because this is our service being provided to you to make sure that this project comes within 10%.
Just to clarify, I wasn't looking for a third-party independent estimate. How simply, if we had a third party, just review your numbers to say,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's fine
square
too.
footage,
Yeah.
dollar amount they're using looks reasonable.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. I don't want a
Okay.
separate independent estimate on a job.
Sure. However you would think about doing it, again, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you choose to do that. Again, I understand the importance of this. So I want to go back to really the difference in the estimates is not that we added scope or we found something that wasn't in the previous estimate and it was missed. I just, in our opinion, in our estimator's opinion, the numbers that were provided about a year ago or shortly, or a little bit less than that, just were, in our opinion, on the low side. And we don't think that if you put this project out to bid, if we had everything drawn today, you're going to get those kind of bids at those numbers per square foot. We just think they're low based upon our experience. I showed you 4 examples of, as similar projects as I could find within the last few days to try and give you a comparison. But even the lowest one was at $130 per square foot. And that was a garage that was part of a bigger project. So it had some shared walls. So there's these numbers we just think are not within industry standard right now. And our numbers are more in line with what we've seen being bid upon in the last, couple of years.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that at all.
Yeah.
I'm more looking at the line that we as board members, might have to approve a 10 to 17 million increase. And we should be able to tell John Q. Public or whoever, hey, we had a third party just review those costs estimates that they're using, unit prices or what have you, or square foot prices. And yeah, this is what it is. And things changed from the original preliminary estimate that we received. So here's where we're at now. I'd rather, to me, otherwise, if we go out there and increase it to 17 million, people could be saying, well, what are you doing that for? Why we go from 10 million to 17 million? And who says we're really that high? So, I don't argue at all, your prices right now or anything, but maybe for the protection of the board, we just have it looked at. And if we could, like Chuck said, we could do that later on when you have more plan development details, and everybody would feel comfortable where we're at and increasing the budget.
Yeah, and I agreed. One of the members mentioned, or a couple of you did, taking the project through the next phase. Again, I think the opportunity to really get into the detailed engineering, which is what the next phase begins, would take us a long way towards refining the scope and making sure that these numbers are really in line with where the market is. The other thing is that in finishing this next phase, probably in, let's say, mid-January, we'll have a better idea of the market heading into 2021. And that may affect my estimator's opinion on the escalation contingency and things like that as well. So I'm not opposed to taking this through the next phase, reassessing where we're at from a cost standpoint. And then you guys always have the option on the table of, like you said, bringing in a third party to just review our numbers and offer an opinion.
Question. Is it possible in your next phase, do you consider, this may sound kind of off the wall, but the need for the structural, the electricity, the plumbing, the water flow, the everything like that, that is not directly associated with the square footage, but with the support of the building where it exists in this community and the support that is already there as far as these other things. I'm not sure what proper word is, but like electricity and water, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. And yes, we've already taken a look at your existing utilities as they come into the building. That was done when we first did our assessment back many months ago. So we have an understanding of how any of these changes will affect your existing utilities. There isn't anything major that has to be done. And we believe that all of your existing utilities, as their incoming services can handle any of the work that we're doing. Now, obviously, things need to change. So for example, as we do these additions, we've got to move underground utilities, but those are accounted for within the drawings that we've prepared to date. And those are accounted for in the pricing in the site work numbers. So where the bus garage addition is being shown, we've got to move some fire lines, things like that. We've got to address it from a stormwater standpoint. Same thing where we have the parking lot on the north side where we're going to expand. We've got to move some utilities. Yes, we'll probably have to add some panels for electricity. We are increasing the load in some areas as well, but we've accounted for everything. Another thing to understand is in these additions, they'll have to be fully sprinklered. So the fire suppression system needs to be expanded. And as I mentioned in the bus garage addition, your gas detection system needs to be expanded as well. So one of the reasons that we were chosen for this project is we have a lot of experience in bus garage work and transit. And the team that we put together, all of our engineers from day one understand what has to be looked at right away to try and identify high cost items. So I can comfortably sit here and tell you that, yes, we've accounted for all the utilities. Again, even if we haven't shown every detail, that information has been conveyed through various meetings with our estimator. So we have that covered. We're comfortable with any utility work.
Thank you.
Ken, this is Donna McNamee. Just out of curiosity, was everything you just listed in terms of the utilities, the necessity to expand some of those, was that included in the original 10 million?
Well, I didn't do that estimate. Another person did. There is, it's not a, it's a well put together estimate. There's a lot of line items here. It does talk about new electrical, I see, and I'm just glancing here. Rooftop units for HVAC, fire alarm. So they did take that into account. Again, I think from an overall big picture standpoint, I just think that they, in a number of areas, underestimated what the cost to some of these things might be. And when it's all said and done, the biggest items are the two additions where I think they're kind of shortchanged, and that's had a ripple effect through the rest of the estimate.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So let me kind of take over a little bit from Ken and talk about a couple of things that I sort of where I see. So first off, I know I spoke to you all this week. Obviously, this is sort of a frustrating place to be. I'm not frustrated at the work Bowen has done. They've done a great job, but obviously, I'm sure you're sharing that frustration now. As you know, we had one expectation and here we are sort of in another place. The questions are sort of, how do we choose to move forward? And just a reminder that you're not being asked to make any decisions tonight. The number you see is not what I think the final number will be. It will come down in some way. But so what do we do between now and sort of the next steps? So I talked to a lot of you about estimates. So what I did was I kind of sort of tried to compare out as best I could. So Bowen's estimate is at 17.8 right now. CT's estimate was at 10.7. I called Burgess and Neipel, actually Dale, after our conversation, and asked them, I said, hey guys, would you be willing to do sort of a third party look at the estimates we have? And they actually said, no, we would not do that for money because COVID has made the estimating process so difficult right now that the best way to get a price is to go to bid. And so I thought that was an interesting answer when I offered, to hire them for that. They said, they declined. So what I then did was reached back out to CT Consultants. And some of you are probably kind of thinking that's an interesting idea. So I asked Mark Horton, who's the gentleman who came here to give you the original estimate. I asked him to look at the Bowen estimate and look at his estimate and tell me, Mark, you're very far apart. CT has done multiple projects for us successfully. How are we in this interesting place? And there's a lot of kind of information on here. I don't want to go through all of it. What I want to point out though is, so he did a variance analysis to determine, where those differences were. But ultimately, what he said is he agrees with where Bowen is at price-wise. He says, COVID has changed some things. The other thing to keep in mind is that the design stage that Bowen is at is a higher level of detail than CT prepared for us. So there's sort of a level of detail that, lends itself to these costs. And at the end of the day, what Mark said to me is he said, yeah, Bowen is slightly higher than what I'd be telling you right now. But if I was in Bowen's shoes, I could see the project coming in about 5% higher or 5% below Bowen's estimate, but only 5%. So basically what he did is he took his costs and adjusted them in the way he does his estimates and sort of tried to adjust Bowen's numbers for when he did his estimate in the end of 2019. So I can go over what you guys, I'll go over that with you individually if you want to go over it because it's kind of complicated and I need some more explanation from Mark because he did it quickly. But ultimately, I had several conversations with him on the phone on Sunday, and he said, I think Bowen's numbers are in the right place. So what do I, out of all those things, out of all the things that sort of we have talked about, that I've talked about with you individually, I spent a lot of time, sort of searching the cosmos as to what is the right next step. There's lots of next steps. We could decide that we don't want to build any building and stop the project, even though Bowen has completed the design for us. I don't think that's the right path, but we have that option as a choice. I think the most important thing right now is to let time be our ally, and is to let Bowen continue to the design process. There's no financial risk to us to continue that process, to refine those details, to get us to where we can get an estimate that we are more comfortable with, maybe not in the number of dollars, but in its precision. I had 2 people suggest hiring a construction manager at risk right now, which is a method for procuring the project, which is a little different than what Laketran has done in the past. Quite frankly, I need to evaluate that more, but that was one way that we could possibly mitigate the risks of the project. The other thing that I have planned, and all the people in the room will shake their head yes that they've received this, is sort of an internal review of where we're at between when we envisioned this project originally and where we are today. COVID has changed things, and we have to acknowledge that in sort of our long-term thought process. The things that are really hard for me and my team and Bowen to figure out is, what is that long-term COVID impact? And I always try to think in our 3 services. We have local routes, park and ride, and dial-a-ride. Now, local routes, I can tell you with a very high confidence level, are going to stay sort of how they are. The people that ride those buses have few alternatives in life. We've seen the ridership go down a little bit, but it hasn't gone down at the rate of other cities. It hasn't gone down at the same rate as our other services. So how we provide local fixed route service is probably going to be very similar going into the future. Our park and ride service, however, has seen, really significant declines in ridership. We are going to need to make a pivot on that service in some way and make changes. It's very hard to know when the right time to make those changes are, but I think we can all agree that Commuter Express is never going to come back to what it was before. How we sort of manage that into the future is a difficult question. We have a lot of very expensive assets involved in that service, which, as of FTA's rules today, if we say we decided to cancel Commuter Express altogether, which I'm not suggesting, we would have to pay FTA back for those assets, multiple park and rides, lots of buses that are pretty new. So the better plan is probably how can we make that service more productive in the long run? But the real wild card that, I don't know the answer, and my team and I are going to sit down and put our, brains together and get the best answer we can for you is what is Dial-A-Ride going to look like in 5 to 10 years? Because that is the service that is driving the need for the expansion of this building in earnest. So what do we think Dial-A-Ride is going to do? And, I don't know the answer, but we're going to sit down and put a good guess to that. And so, the challenge is do we think a vaccine is going to have a major impact on Dial-A-Ride 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months? Probably not 6 months, but what is it going to do? And then within that impact, we had 13,000 people a year going to senior centers. A lot of cities have shut their senior centers down, and in my opinion, they've moved those budget line items to other places. So are those senior centers going to come back like they did in the past? And, I'm not sure what the answer is to that. So we're going to look at that. The other thing that makes this really particularly hard is, Laketran is kind of, in a way, like a large oil tanker. And what I mean by that is we turn very slowly. We measure things in multiple years, project-wise and change-wise. It takes 18 months to get a bus. It takes 6 to 8 months for a bus driver to go through the hiring, training, and the period of time when they are productive. Building-wise, this project we started over a year ago and is scheduled for completion in mid-22. And so, what the right answers are and how COVID affects those are things that we are going to spend a lot of time talking internally about, what we think things are going to do. And then we'll come back to the board and sort of report where we are, and we'll report whether we think, we should continue this project exactly how we planned it, or we should make adjustments or, sort of give you sort of insight into what we think, talking to our customers, talking to the public, what is going to happen in the future. The other thing we're going to talk about is the financing piece, because obviously this is a significant financial difference between what Bowen has presented and what we expected. And this is another area where time is going to be our ally. And why I say that is because just on Thursday, I learned that both the House and the Senate, the US House and Senate, have both agreed to increase the amount of money available to bus and bus facility grants, which are the grants that we use to buy buses and build buildings, by $500 million. And so that's a number that's coming soon. And I'm not saying that we should plan our project based on, the possibility of getting a federal grant, but that's a significant change from when the project was originally conceived. And so I think right now, my recommendation is to let Bowen continue work, and then for us to continue to evaluate it moving forward. We already have 1.25 million of grant money that we've been able to accrue for this project. So that time will also give us more time to help potentially defray some of those financial impacts. And I'm not saying that just because we have the money, we should build the building. That's not what I mean by that. We should build the building if we really feel strongly about it and think we need it long term. And that's the part that we're going to evaluate. But we also don't just want to come and say, yes, we think we should do it. We also want to come and say, yes, we think we should do it. And here are some of the plans and options we have in place for the board to consider for the financial impact of that building sort of long term. So that's kind of a lot of information. But ultimately, the more I thought about it, the more I think that time will help us. And the best way to move forward is to just let that time help us. So that's kind of my narrative. After all the time I spent thinking on it, all the conversations I had with the board. And I'm kind of curious what the board's, opinion on that is, sort of as a way to move forward for right now.
Well, I guess I'll start. I don't argue that we should move forward with the plan development to the next stage, and we'll have more information in January, whatever. We can take another look at it. Not necessarily. It would have been nice to see the CT slide before I peppered the poor guy with questions on his estimate.
Sorry, Dale.
Apparently CT kind of looked at it and said, yeah, okay, it makes sense. So, with that, I would move forward. I would recommend moving forward, and we'll relook at everything in January. And I don't argue all the COVID stuff and everything. I don't want you to overthink it where, you're going to go crazy with yourself. Let's just see what happens come January. And hopefully, if we think there's going to be a vaccine out there, if we think for some reason it might impact stuff, it doesn't mean we can't delay building it. We can complete plans, but we don't necessarily have to move on the same schedule for construction. So, as far as what we do right now, I suggest we go with the continued plan development and look at it again in January.
I'm in agreement with you on that one, Dale. I think that we should just continue on with it and see where the design development and the cost estimating after that takes us.
It doesn't sound like we're out anything by allowing the process to move forward right now. So I would be okay with allowing the process to continue. It would be interesting upon reflection of the project and seeing some designs if there was any feedback from directors or others at Laketran. And I like the idea that there was the possibility of potentially, for example, phasing something, since the bus garage is not really related to the other parts if we were uncertain about demand for service. The last question I would have, Ben, for you is, does this conceptual design that you went to CT with in Bowen, does this include absolutely everything that you envision the agency needing for the next 10, 15, 20 years today, looking at your crystal ball, of course?
Yeah, me and the directors and the staff, we spent a lot of time on our original scope in saying what will get us through the next 30 years, because we don't think we should make constant changes to the building. We would like to get it all done and sort of, be able to maximize, if someone's here working on the building, doing more work at that one time is cheaper than little pieces over time. So we have, through the process, reduced a couple things that we had in there originally to get us where we are, get us to where we are now. And those are things that I've discussed with my staff, and they're not, we don't expect this project to be every single thing that we think we need for the future. It should be 95% of what we need, because there's always that 5% that's a nice to have versus a need to have. And so as we've seen these numbers, we've made some adjustments. And so that's something we'll continue to do with Bowen as we go.
I too think that we need to just continue to pursue this and see where it leads us. And I think I'm very pleased everyone's asking these very detailed questions, and we're certainly living up to our due diligence by taking this path. I'm very comfortable with that.
That is sort of the conclusion of my thought process and Bowen's presentation. So, and unless anybody else has any questions.
Just want to thank him for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Ken, for being there for us.
Great. Well, thank you to everyone for all that today. It looks like we do have another presentation on the agenda, and it's a very large one. Keeping with the theme of today, it's going to be our 2021 operating and capital budget. And at this time, I'm going to presume I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
All right, thank you very much. I have before you the 2021 Laketran operating budget. And this is not going to, you're not being asked to pass anything tonight. This is kind of for your information to present it, give you time to digest it. If you have any questions, certainly yes tonight or ask before the December meeting. We will be asking you in December to pass the budget. Currently, the operating revenues are projected to be $24,696,000. This will be with one full year of sales tax at the new rate. In 2020, we only had a portion of it from May to the December that we received sales tax at the new rate. Operating expenses are projected to be $22,405,400, leaving us a net income before depreciation projected at about 2.2 or 2.3 million. The second page, this gives a little bit of reasoning behind the basis of what I came up with. And again, I already spoke about the sales tax. I will say that sales tax is approximately 77.57% of our total revenues, which we will see on the next slide. I did a pie chart for the revenue piece. Our federal funding, which we use for capitalized maintenance and ADA, is estimated to be at $1,558,100. This is about 6.31% of our total budget for revenue. It is a slight decrease. The reason for that is because the state funding, we were able to get OTP2 funding, and we needed to spend that in a speedy fashion. So we used some of that in combination with the federal funding is about what we get annually. So for 2020 fund, the state funding for UTP, ED, and OTP2 is estimated to be $1,813,075, which is actually an increase of 7.34. I'm sorry, not an increase. It is an increase, but it's a bigger increase. It's a 58.7% increase over 2020, but it's approximately 7.34% of our total budget. And then the next one I have listed is fair revenues. Now, this is one that was very difficult due to several different things with COVID. And honestly, we had fairs from the March 25th, I believe, till the end of September that we did not even charge for. And with ridership being low, it really was a guess on where we might be or what to put in the budget. I estimated approximately $838,340 for 2021. We currently will probably be at about $431,340. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let me back up. That's the increase. The increase is 431 with an $838,340 estimate. We're projecting about 407,000 for 2020. So I know that looks like an extreme amount or an increase, but I'm really not sure where we'll be. Of all the years I've done budgets, this has probably been one of the most difficult. And I thought it would be a lot easier being that we passed the levy, but there's a lot of unknowns. But fair revenue, and this is just the fair revenue, meaning is what people pay when they get on the bus, equals about 3.39% of our total budget. So if we go to the next slide, it kind of shows that. I kind of tried to put the percentage out for you with the piece of the pie. Another piece that I didn't really talk about on the other slide would be our contract revenue, which includes Lakeland. And again, that's still part of your ridership. I did not put as much decrease in that for next year. But again, I really don't know where that's going to be. I took more of the decrease in the fares and people paying when they get on the bus versus the contract revenue that we have with DD and JFS in Lakeland. And then if we go to the next slide, it's just kind of basically showing you the federal operating from 2017 to 2021 and how it's kind of varied. And the reason, again, it isn't they've cut our revenue. It's that we've reallocated to some capital projects versus the capitalized maintenance because we were able to get this OTP2 funding from the state. If you go on to the next slide, the state funding, and you can see we started out and that's kind of gone up. So it's kind of states going up, federal went down to keep it basically balanced. And then if we go to the next slide, which would be the local sales tax, you will see 17, 18, and 19, you had gradual increases. The 5-year average increase in sales tax is about 1.36%, and that is the amount that I estimated going from 20 to 21 for just an increase on an annual basis. And then it looks like it's drastically going up from 19, 20 to 21. But again, we passed the levy in November of 19, and we got May. So not 5. We had 9 months, 8 months. 8 months? No, 7 months. But we actually started collection in April. So, but we didn't actually receive it until May. So we had it from May through the end of December for 2020. And then I estimated the full year with a 1.36% increase for 2021. Then if we go on to the next slide, it's our operating budget expenses. So our wages and expenses are estimated to go up about 26%. But there's reasons for that. And the reason is we added a new route, which was another, I have no history to really budget that going forward. So after talking with Ben, we kind of made the assumption based on a specific route and then with all the people that we have in our organizational chart. And I believe there is an organizational chart tonight that is included in this budget for all those people. And then we also had our annual wage increase, and then we have our regular health increase that we're estimating at 8%, and any payouts or whatever we have to do at the end of the year or when somebody retires. So that's how we come to 26%. It isn't just everybody's getting at 20%, 26% increases. You have a lot of variables in there throughout the year. Services, they're estimated to increase about 12.68% or 198,000 from 20 to 21. And the reason for that is we have an estimated increase is due to maintenance for some one-time repairs for the oil room. And then we also have some increases in dial-a-ride and fixed route services, such as for fixed route, the routes 8 and 9. Fuel and oil is estimated to increase about 80.43% or 678,000. Again, part of it's due to whatever the market rate is, which I believe tonight we have on what price we'll be entering into for a contract. And then I did not know exactly what those rates were when I did this. And with Keith's input, I estimated them, but we also have the electric buses that we're supposed to get next year. And with that and the new routes, that's why we estimated the 80.43. Obviously, if we do not spend that, then that will free up the budget a little bit.
Can I stop you 1 second? That fuel and oil, is that on a consortium or something that we go in with other transit agencies or?
Yes, it
other
is.
State agencies?
Yeah, it's with Akron. I think we entered in with Akron Metro.
All
Yeah,
right, thank you.
we've done this, I think, for the last 4, 5, 6 years, 4 years.
Yeah,
Since
okay.
2004, actually. That's longer than I thought.
Yeah, we actually have an action item for that again tonight, Dale, with some good detail in it.
So, okay. And then the purchase, transportation, and miscellaneous expenses will increase significantly from 20 to 21. And that's really due to the COVID-19 virus, because we hardly had any travel. There was a lot of things we didn't do. I mean, the economy was shut down for a couple months. So based on those increases, I mean, it's hard when you're comparing 20 to 21 because, and then I thought, well, geez, should I put some of 19's actual numbers? But 19 really wouldn't be completely representative either, because you have a new route, 8 and 9. There's just so many things that we have that we're doing different this year. So if we turn to the next slide, I have a pie chart for you for the expenses. And you can see, I mean, we're a service industry, so 74% of our budget's going to be wages and benefits. Utilities and insurance is about 3%. Services is about 8%. Purchase transportation is about 1%. We have some supplies in there, which includes the fuel, of course, which is about 12%, and just some miscellaneous expenses, for a total of $22,405,400 for an estimate. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them on the operating budget, and then I'm going to go on to our capital budget that I have available. Nope. Okay, then we'll move on to the capital. Capital budget for 2021 is being estimated at $8,716,562. Laketran applies for all grant opportunities for which it is eligible. Our fleet improvement, every year we do purchase some type of dial-a-ride buses. Our 2015 dial-a-ride vehicles have reached their useful life. Laketran does have some CMAQ awards earmarked through 2025 for fleet replacements for dial-a-ride. As far as construction projects, obviously, as you heard tonight, we have construction at Laketran headquarters, which is estimated to begin in the second quarter of 2021. We usually have some type of professional services with engineering and design services will be required for any construction project performed by Laketran. And then we have such things like non-revenue vehicles, which include driver relief vehicles, road supervisor vehicles, staff vehicles. Typically, these vehicles have a useful life of 10 years. If we go to the next slide, I'll be able to break down for you the $8,716,562. I broke it out by federal, state, and local revenue. So for example, on here I have Shoregate. The federal revenue that we will need for the 2021 budget will be $2,854,655. And then I broke out what makes that up and at what percentage is being paid by federal revenue. And then below that is state revenue. We have about $65,000. And then the local revenue share of this $8,716,562 is about $5,796,907. And again, I have that detailed out. And obviously, the majority of that is going to be towards the headquarters. Now, in this budget, we just estimated what we would be spending for 2021. And then obviously, this headquarters is going to be going over a couple years. So there'll be some expenses in 2022. But when you look at the next slide, which summarizes for 22, 23, 24, and 25, this was in there with the headquarters at the original amount. We didn't adjust anything yet because we really don't know exactly what it's going to be. But the 22 through 25, the board is not being asked to pass. It's just for your information to give you an idea of where we're at. So we're estimating about, in the future, between 22, about 8 million. And then after that, it should be somewhere in the million, about 3.5, 3.6 million after that. So the total capital through 2022 and 25 would be 8,926,000 of federal money and 9,991,000 of local money.
Just for those of you that haven't been through the budget process with us before, we always present everything in November and then request approval in December. So the intention of this is to give you a high-level overview and the budget book so that you have, this month to go through it, review it, ask us questions, schedule meetings with us, whatever you would like to feel comfortable. So, I know some of you haven't been through this with us yet, but that is sort of why we do it this way and is sort of our intention. So, if you would like any additional information from Lisa, you'd like to schedule a meeting or have questions, just let me know and we'll be happy to set up a Zoom call or a phone call or an in-person, whatever you prefer to, answer any questions you have before we request approval in December. We do have to have an approved budget in December to lead us into January. So we will have to approve, usually we approve the whole budget in December, but we will have to approve something no matter what in December in the event, a board member has any concerns or questions. But Lisa spent a lot of time on this budget. This was, like she said, this was very challenging. I think she did a very good job. But there really are a lot of estimates that are sort of uncertain because of COVID. Yeah, but even with that, we feel like we're in a pretty comfortable place. And we don't really see any major hurdles next year. And just a reminder that capital projects, even though you approve a capital budget, the vast majority of those, we come before the board with the individual project for approval as we go through the project. So you'll get a second, sort of the capital projects, you get another approval on all of those items.
And there is more detail in my budget book that is provided in the book, in the packet, board packet.
Then looking at the capital side of this budget, this is Donna. Does this assume that this is the construction project is primarily based on local funds?
At this time, it does. It also doesn't take into account an increase in cost. This is based on the previous estimates. So in the event we decided to move forward with the project at a higher dollar amount, we would need to amend the capital budget. But we didn't feel like this was the appropriate time to do that going forward.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ben or Lisa regarding the budget? Doesn't look like we have any other questions at this time. Thank you very much, Lisa. Our next item is going to be an executive session. At this time, is there a motion for the board to go into executive session?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Spence. Vicki, if you could please call the roll.
Martin,
Please note, some of you may be muted.
Yes.
McNamee,
Yes.
Montrella,
Yes.
Simone,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Benz,
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
At 5:29, the board is going into executive session. We will invite our CEO and our legal counsel to stay in the room.
And just a note to anyone who may be watching us on YouTube, the stream is going to stop. We will then restart it and a new video will start when we come back from executive session.
So we're supposed to leave this and sign.